Alright, I'm just coming back from the very first test dive with the new iPhone 14 Pro Max. And that means it's basically time to talk about my first impressions of using the iPhone 14 Pro Max to film underwater. Coming up. Hey there underwater filmmakers, it's great to see you back here on the channel for yet another video. Today we'll be talking about my first impressions of using the iPhone 14 Pro for filming underwater. Now, before we get into that video, just let me show you what setup I was using to capture today's shots here in the Lake of Zurich. I was using my trusted Divevolk SeaTouch 4 Max underwater smartphone housing, which is in my opinion the best smartphone housing that you can get on the market nowadays, for the simple reason that it will allow you, let me show you, that it will allow you to use the touch screen of your smartphone housing even while being underwater, and that gives you access to all the functions of your smartphone even while being underwater and during the dive. And it's not a housing that is just usable with iPhones, but with pretty much any other phone that is on the market nowadays. So I can highly recommend this housing if you're looking at getting something to take your phone underwater and film with it. I have actually done a proper full review on this housing. If this is interesting to you, I'll link it up here in the corner so you can go and check that out. Other than that, I've used the handle. This is also from Divevolk, the same guys. I've used the macro lens on a sort of a flip-in filter, and my Kelden, one of my Kelden lights here to get some extra light into the scenes, because we're diving in the lake, and I was expecting it to be rather dark because there wasn't any sun out today. And I wasn't expecting the visibility to be too great either, which actually proved to be quite accurate. There wasn't any sun, visibility wasn't great on today's dive, so the conditions weren't fantastic for such a test dive, but I couldn't wait. I was very eager to get in there after having had my iPhone 14 Pro Max for about 2.5 weeks now and haven't had the chance to get in the water with it until today. So I was very eager to get in there and test out a few things and see how it compares to the iPhone 13 Pro that I previously owned. The one thing that I was most interested when testing the iPhone 14 Pro Max this morning here in the Lake of Zurich was to get a feel and see how the newly introduced action mode works and whether or not it was going to make a difference for the stability of your footage. So here's a couple of shots that I've taken this morning, some of them taken with the action mode on and others with the action mode off. I've tried to match these shots with each another so that you can kind of see whether or not there is any difference in the stability that the action mode makes. Personally, I have to say that I could not really see a huge difference when looking at them back at the computer coming back home after the dive. Maybe, but just maybe, the footage taken with the action mode on is just a tiny bit smoother, but that's really difficult to see, I think, and if you don't know it, I don't think that you would really see it. All of these images there, right out of the camera, so right out of the cell phone. I haven't done any corrections on them. I haven't done any post stabilization or anything else on them. They're really just as they came out of the camera. And while using this action mode, there were a few things that I noticed that I want to mention to you guys here so that you are aware of them when you use the action mode on your iPhone 14 Pro or 14 Pro Max. Now, the first thing that I noticed is that the action mode for some reason needs more light, and it happened a few times that while in the action mode the phone would actually give me a message that it needs more light required. I can't really say why this is the case, but it happened. It is what happened to me this morning on the dive, that I had to just basically crank up the output on my Kelden underwater video light, and as soon as I gave more light into the scene, the warning disappeared and it seemed to be working fine. Another thing that I noticed that I find quite disturbing and annoying really is that every time I switch in between having the action mode turned on and having it turned off, the lens selection that I've chosen before, it will just go to a different lens. So if I, for example, have the action mode turned on and I'm in the telephoto lens, the 3x lens, and then I turn the action mode off, it will just swap to a different lens, switch to a different lens, and then suddenly I'm on the 1x lens, the normal lens, or I'm even on the ultra wide angle lens. For whatever reason, I don't understand why this is happening. Maybe there is a setting somewhere I didn't see it that I can turn on or off, and then it won't do this anymore. I haven't found it yet, but it's very annoying because if I'm filming something with the telephoto lens, probably something small, some macro stuff, and then I want to switch the action mode on, it just goes to another lens and I have to choose the macro, the telephoto lens again, which is quite annoying. Also, while I was being annoyed by that, I realized and noticed that the framing from the telephoto lens having the action mode turned on and having the action mode turned off is not the same. It seems like the camera is cropping in more when it uses the action mode. And I've got a little clip here for you that you can see what I mean. You can clearly see that the framing is different from using the telephoto lens with the action mode on and with the action mode off. And again, I don't really know why this is happening. The only explanation I have is that with the action mode on, the camera crops in a little more. This is not something dramatic or bad in any way, but it's something that you should be aware of when using that action mode. Talking about things you should be aware of when using the action mode, keep in mind that as soon as you switch to the action mode, you can only film in 2.8K. 4K is not available in the action mode because it actually needs that extra room around the corners and on all of the sides to be able to stabilize the image. So as I was happily playing around with the freshwater lobsters on that particular dive site that I visited this morning, I noticed something that really confused me, something that only happened when I had the action mode turned on. And I never really saw this when having the action mode turned off. Now have a look at this clip. This was shot with the action mode turned on, and this is as it came out of the camera. It looks crazy. I don't know what happened to this clip, if this is like a software bug or something else. I can't really explain it, but it looks really, really weird. It's not even that the image looks soft, that it's out of focus, but it just looks sort of cartoonish. Really, really weird. I don't know what happened here, but it happened 2 or 3 times, and it only happened when using the action mode. Whenever I switched back to the regular normal mode without the action setting on, this didn't happen, and all the footage that I was collecting with the action mode turned off was fine, just pretty much the same as the footage that I was able to get with my iPhone 13 Pro, so I didn't really see much of a difference there. So bringing this to a little conclusion here of my first impressions and the first time using the iPhone 14 Pro Max underwater, and with the focus on the newly introduced action mode. If we leave the action mode aside and we just look at the phone as it is and the camera inside the phone, then it is pretty much the same as on the iPhone 13 Pro that I've used and owned previously, and I've always been very happy with the results coming out of the iPhone 13 Pro, and it seems like the 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max are going to be basically just the same. This is obviously not true if you're more of a photographer, because for photographers, the 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max will have quite a bit of a change there with the much higher resolution that the the camera will give you when you take photos. Now, instead of the 12 megapixels, you're gonna get 48 megapixels when using the regular camera, and that's definitely gonna make a difference there. But I haven't tried out any photos yet. That's gonna happen in a future trial of the phone. Looking at the action mode, I'm actually not too sure what to tell you. I think I was expecting a little more. I don't think the difference between not using and using the action mode is dramatic. It might be a slight difference there in stability when using the action mode, but there seems to also be a couple of, I don't know, hiccups when using that action mode, where some of the images seem to be a little soft and some seem to be just very weird, as we just saw in the previous example. So I'm not entirely sure what to tell you about the action mode. I think I basically just need more experience with it and experience in different situations, in different environments, because as we've seen, the environment, the dive site, the conditions weren't really ideal for testing such stuff on the dive today. But I'll definitely take the iPhone 14 Pro Max, as well as the housing and everything, with me on our underwater videography workshop in Egypt, which is gonna happen in not even 3 weeks from now. And I'll do a lot more testing with it over there. And then hopefully I will be able to give you a bit of a better answer as to whether it is desirable to use the action mode when filming underwater with your iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max. And this brings today's video to an end. Thank you so much, guys, for your time and for watching. As always, I hope that this video was beneficial to you and you got something out of it. And if that's the case, please do hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet, so you're not missing out on any future content that will be uploaded here. As always, have a fantastic week. Enjoy capturing your underwater adventures, and I will see you in the next one.